Sounds good. Hello, everyone. Welcome. Thanks for taking moments out of your day to be with us. Talk about clean energy, charting the course for our sustainable future. So we're just going to do a quick intro with the folks that are on the community council. I'm sure by now most folks know who each other are, but it's just kind of a protocol, so we'll do that. And I hope that this is my last meeting facilitating. Part of the agenda today will be to name a chair and a vice chair for this group. So you won't have to listen to me talk as much as you do currently. So, but anyway, I'm going to lead for this moment. And on my screen, I'm going to start with Keith.
Keith Bamberger, work for the Division of Air Quality, and happy to be here.
Great. Jason Walls.
Hello, everybody. Jason Walls. I'm the district manager here in Asheville with Duke Energy.
Great. Eliza.
Hey y'all, I'm Eliza Stokes. I am the organizer and communications manager at Mountain True.
Great. And Brownie. You're on mute, Brownie.
Hey, sorry, this is Brownie, and I'm representing the County Commission.
Thank you. All right, Phelps.
Yeah, I'm Phelps Clark with Sugar Hollow Solar.
And David King.
Yeah, David King, Western Carolina, the energy management and building automation systems.
Great. Ken Nelson.
Yeah, Ken Nelson, president of Blue Delta Energy, and we do a little bit of everything.
Great. All right. Did I miss anyone that's actually formally on the Blue Horizons Project Community Council? I don't think so. We also have Sophie's on the call from Blue Horizons Project, Bridget from the city, Jeremiah from the county, Hannah from Greenbelt Alliance does a lot of work for Energy Savers, and all the rest of you fine folks that are super passionate about this. And we're not going to take the time to go through everyone on the call like we did last time, but I appreciate everyone showing up here today. I'm going to pull up the agenda, and I guess, Sophie, you're taking notes, right?
Yeah, Beatrice and I are going to take notes today.
Okay, great. So the first thing is to approve the minutes from the last meeting. So does anyone want to make a motion to approve those minutes?
I'll make that motion.
Thank you. Second?
I'll second.
All right. Anyone opposed? Nope. So, okay, it passes unanimously. All right. So the next thing on our agenda is the charter. And we sent that out after last meeting, and we asked for people to review it and make any suggestions on it. And let's see, why don't I just share my screen if I can do that.
I have the one that folks have made comments on up if you wanted me to share too. I'm not sure when you wanted to
go ahead, Sophie.
Okay.
I probably did this. I have the same thing, but go ahead.
All right.
So as we all know, the charter essentially was created by the Energy Innovation Task Force and was approved by that body. And then we requested that y'all look at this and just give us some feedback on that. So we did get some comments from several of you. And most of the comments I'm seeing are supportive, and like the first word, supporting the community in achieving our goal of reducing energy demand transition to 100% renewable. so I didn't necessarily see anything. So if we scroll down, I just want to see if, was there anything in here that was like truly a change in direction from the group? I don't think there was, but.
I mean, there are some pretty substantive comments towards the bottom.
Okay,
Mhm.
let's look at those.
Let's see. There's a question here from Eliza about the municipal 2030 100% renewable energy goal and adding that into the purpose.
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify if we think that belongs here, because I saw some of the deliverables speak to that lower down, mostly regarding the city and county efforts to meet those goals. But I think if that is part of our work, it makes sense for it to be in the purpose and is also an earlier benchmark to help keep us on track.
Does anyone from the county or city want to address that and whether or not you want that included in this?
Hey, this is Brownie. I'll comment on it. It doesn't give me any heartburn to have it in there. You know, I think that I guess my only reservation is that I think the focus of the group ought to be the more community-facing goals rather than the city and county's internal goals. I mean, of course, I think those internal goals are super important, and they're the ones that we're going to need to achieve on a faster time frame. You know, my personal view is that I'm hoping we're going to achieve them on actually a significantly faster time frame than the goals that the commission has approved so far. But that'll be up to the commission to, you know, if we want to change the time frame on that, that's a discussion at that level, and we haven't done that yet. So I think the primary focus should be on the community goals, but I certainly don't have any concerns about having discussion. I mean, I think we should certainly be having discussions about how the city and county are tracking towards achieving those goals. None of these goals are going to be easy by any means. So I would say, yes, let's do it. But if there's ways to kind of emphasize that a big part of this group is to think about how to engage the community around achieving the even more ambitious community goals.
And hi, this is Amber. Oh, go ahead, Bridget.
I think what Brownie said was right on. And the other thing that I just want to add to this is that the city does have a Citizen Sustainability Advisory Committee that works on these issues. And so we just want to, like, that's another avenue where the city's informing people. And so, of course, we'd be informing people, but I don't think it's the primary focus of this group.
And I was going to add, this is Amber Weaver on the line with the city of Asheville. I was also going to add that one of the things we discussed when putting together the charter is that we're looking for, and one of the ways we're participating in the community-wide goal is to hear from the community about barriers that the city and the county can address to help achieve these community-wide renewable energy goals. And I'm not sure if there's a way to edit the language to include that, but from the city perspective, that is one of the ways that we hope to participate in this larger community-wide goal, is to hear from this group on changes that can be made on a municipal, city, county level.
Okay, so am I hearing from y'all that it's okay to include the municipal piece in this? Y'all okay with that? Any objections?
I think it's okay to include it, but I would want to make sure that it's that it's written correctly. So maybe we can, make that edit, or come back and discuss the edit one-on-one.
Okay. Yep. All right. Sounds good.
Next comment is Keith Bamberger's, adding the flexibility of adding additional energy partners.
If you look in it specifically mentions Duke Energy, and I don't know if we want to be able to add if Dominion wants to, or I'm just using them because they're, well, an obvious choice. But if we want to add any more, if we want to keep it in Duke, and I'm not really sure, it's just thought. I guess all my comments in the whole thing are just, I want to make sure we have full flexibility to take advantage of opportunities when they arise. And I know that it's a charter and it's their guiding principles, but I just want to make sure that those options are available to us.
Mm-hmm. Okay, any other comments on that? Folks on the community council?
I would just second what Keith has to say. I think you need all partners at the table.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a big one.
The only other thing I'm going to bring up really quickly is the fact that 100% renewable is sort of a vague goal in a lot of ways. I mean, as we're working with a group, including Google, to look at matching renewable generation to actual load versus just matching the amount of generation on an annualized basis. Not saying we have to do that right now, but understand that the term 100% renewable energy is something that the industry is still wrestling with exactly what that means.
Okay. So I think what I'm hearing is maybe on the staff side, we'll take a shot at, maybe adding in that last sentence, just something about, and other energy stakeholders or other energy partners, something like that. So, because it's going to be, with the county, city, Duke Energy, and others.
Maybe if we add the thing about the city and the county, we could circle back to what the people from the city of Asheville said about the concept of removing barriers to getting this done, as far as permitting or whatever those are, like coming from the outside organizations. Maybe barriers, maybe at the Duke Energy level too.
Yeah.
Or I don't know how we were going to deal with that. What was we were talking about circling up one-on-one. I mean, I don't know what it sounded like an important one to kind of maybe make sure we nail down.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. And Julie, I saw your comment about Dominion, so thank you for including that. And any other people that are doing in the chat. The chat's it's also a nice way to comment. So thanks for folks chiming in there as well. Okay.
All right. Looks like next comment is for Eliza as well. About program, not just increasing program participation, but expanding and scaling up the capacity of renewable energy and energy efficiency programs, with David King also agreeing on all that.
Okay. And in some ways, it's like scaling up the capacity that's done within Duke itself. I'm hoping that this group, has that ability. We definitely have the ability to increase program participation, scaling up the capacity of the programs. That's going to be a lot of it's going to be my understanding. That's going to be up to Duke but I'm open to any feedback on that.
I think, my comment here was, was that comment, Eliza, was it, maybe that was fall under continued program, like new program and innovation. not just scaling up existing programs.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's clear that to reach the goal that we have set out before us, that we need to ramp up what exists pretty significantly. And I think this is just an opportunity for that to be in the charter, that we're not just thinking about current program participation, but beyond that.
Got it. Thank you. Yep. Okay.
All right, next is from Keith, including the building, design, and engineering community in our efforts of engagement, educating the people who are not looking but will be excited about solutions.
And that could totally be captured by private sector, but I just want to be careful because different words can mean the same thing, or the same words can mean different things to different people.
Okay.
All right, if you want to move on, establishing an annual fundraising goal and securing funding. Phelps wonders if we should make this more prominent in the charter.
It's probably fine. I feel like it was going on, but it just seems like that's going to be an important part of this, is like get money to do stuff.
Get money to do stuff.
For sure.
Get money to support our other key initiatives.
Yeah, I think about fundraising every day, so it's definitely top of my mind. But I think it, as a group, being able to have some sessions focused on fundraising and different opportunities would be helpful.
I definitely saw down below that's sort of one of the jobs assigned to everybody on the council for sure. Seems like it was down there somewhere. But anyway, yeah. Anyway, I was just thinking.
Yeah, good.
All right. Next, we have some comments about, so this looks like it's related to removing the calling out of minority voices in our membership composition, and instead moving that language and changing that language to be here in this section where I'm mousing over, to be more explicit about diversity there instead. And Eliza, I think in your comments, you said it really well, that if you wanted to voice them for the good of the people who can't see the screen, that'd be appreciated.
Sure. Yeah, I got feedback from some folks in our community that felt a little bit insulting, that it felt like that was sort of delegating minority voices to one box without thinking about it more holistically, which I'm sure was not the intention, but I think just moving that above makes it more clear that that's something we're thinking about in all of these positions.
All right, feedback from others on that?
I think that sounds smart. Would they stay in both places, Eliza, or would it just move?
I would suggest taking out the minority voices as a separate box to check below, and then just writing about that more specifically above. What I added so far was sought out and encouraged, but I'm happy to wordsmith that more.
To me, that makes a lot of sense, and I think that the wording actually is good.
If we want to do it, do we just say I motion to make that change? Is that how this works? How does this work?
Sure.
Okay, I want to do a motion to make Eliza's change as suggested.
Anyone object to that? All right. Okay, good. We'll make it. All right. Let's see. All right, what's next, Sophie?
Let's see. Looking at areas of representation at affordable housing provider or developer, where it was suggested to remove developer. And I added some clarifying notes just today. Liza, sorry if you didn't see them yet, but oh, you responded back, great. Okay with leaving it as is, I guess. But you're mindful that there are a number of developers on this list. So it's a very good point as well. Any other comments on affordable housing provider / developer? All right, and then next comment is to add, alternative fuel. Dave Erb, who unfortunately couldn't join us today, wants to suggest that we remove alternative fuel from the transportation line and that the full range of multimodal transportation, which includes vehicle avoidance, independent of energy source, should be represented. So multimodal transportation too, such as biking and transit and walking. Advocacy representation is what I understand from this comment.
As I said in the comment, I agree with that. I think that as our transportation world is going to change in the next 40 years to something we may not recognize, but we need to make sure that it is. Yeah, I like Dave's suggestion.
So would we say alternative fuel and multimodal transportation, just to be?
I think that multimodal actually incorporates that. In my mind, it does anyway. But,
or is mobility a better word? I mean, are we talking, if we're not talking like walking, I mean, what are we talking? I mean, I know we're wordsmithing, but it sounds like we're more almost mobility than transportation.
I think the intention with Dave's comment was to just shift it away from being vehicle focused and acknowledging that, you know, people take the bus, as I guess that's another vehicle, or a bicycle, or they walk around or use a wheelchair or strollers even.
Which gets more into urban design and other things. And we start talking about walking and, you know,
transportation planning.
Mm-hmm.
You know, in the city and the county both have, you know, significant efforts in that, you know, there's a multimodal, I believe, commission or plan that the city has, and there's definitely a lot of focus on transportation in both of those entities. So there's other groups working on that. I just want to make sure that this group, you know, there is a focus, at least on the fuel side of things, because if we're looking at 100% renewable, transitioning away from using gasoline, you know, into EVs and other things is going to be a big effort. And I mean, maybe Brownie, Amber, Bridget, Jeremiah, y'all can comment on whether or not there's a focus on the transportation side of things, on the fuels part of things, or is it more like on the planning side of things?
Jeremiah, you want to take a stab at that?
So, yeah, sure, I can. Our focus, at least inside my department, is primarily on transitioning to efficient and clean vehicles. The county does have a lot of efforts underway, though, and will, as part of our comprehensive planning process, which we're sort of just getting started with that. We haven't even done the process to determine, you know, who's going to be the consultant to help us develop that. But I mean, I'd say yes. The answer is yes. It is sort of a multimodal approach, but you know, my primary area of focus, like, is vehicles, right? Transitioning county fleet to clean vehicles and reducing our carbon emissions that way. Because again, you know, my primary focus, at least in terms of my job, is the county's internal goals, right? That's my big push. And so I'm working at reducing our greenhouse gas emissions via, you know, efficient fleet vehicles for the county. But we don't have a ton of efforts underway in terms of like community-wide stuff, but that's going to be a part of our comprehensive planning process. I know the city probably has a little bit more in terms of community approaches to efficient vehicles and stuff, or multimodal transportation. So maybe, I don't know, Bridget or Amber, if you could speak to that a little bit.
Sure. So I think, you know, there's opportunity obviously for this group to like advocate through those bodies towards council if there are things that fall under the city's purview. I mean, I think in terms of this, you know, group, there's opportunities, you know, to support if Duke had another, you know, EV pilot program that you wanted to provide comments on, or helping that like get rolled out in the private sector and in our community, and working with individuals on that aspect is where I thought that this group would, you know, really have a good place to take some action. You know, I think you just don't want to duplicate effort. So I think there's definitely an opportunity to like work in concert and be involved in the existing initiatives and maybe bring this voice to that table for those reasons. But then I think there's other opportunities just in the community as a whole to move in that direction.
Mhm. So maybe what I'm hearing is, I would prefer, I mean, of course, I'm the staff to this commission, but for this council, but to keep alternative fuel in there because the fuel is a significant part of it. And the multimodal is, you know, it's more of a planning thing. But we could put alternative fuel and multimodal if people feel strongly about that.
Brad had a good
This
comment
is
about-
Amber.
Sorry.
Just as a comment, one of the reasons we left renewable fuel in there is because we don't want to exclude some of the fuels that are coming from pig farms and some of the pilot programs that are coming from there. That's also, you know, it gives off emissions, and it's something that we would want to be able to take advantage of if that's something that comes down the pipeline and is a successful alternative fuel.
Yeah, because we're talking about, potentially hog waste fuel or biodiesel, you know, or electric. I mean, there's a variety of fuels that might become available. You know, there's maybe hydrogen fuels.
So we could just refer to them as clean fuels and transportation.
Or just say like multimodal and alternative fuels to.
This is Dave. I'm sorry I'm late, but
Oh, there
looks
you
like
are.
I chose a good time to step in.
Yay, Dave.
My suggestion for taking that out was just to broaden it, to say sustainable transportation.
Great. So would it fit your intention to have multimodal and alternative fuel transportation in that line, and that's good? Or you wanted it to be something different?
Well, I mean, I just think the whole notion of sustainability in transportation, which includes demand reduction, you know, so there's, I don't feel strongly about any particular wording, but I was really just trying to say, if I can find a way to use diesel buses, but only use them a tenth as much, that's every bit as good as finding a way to you know, improve the fuel economy by a factor of 10 or something like that.
Okay.
So in Executive Order 80, Governor Cooper's Executive Order 80, he refers to zero emission vehicles. I don't know if that's something we want to echo. And really getting we did then the latitude to mention those people getting out of the car or getting into a bus. Yeah.
There's one factor in here, which is this is a list of the different people on the council. So, you know, having a alternative fuel, multimodal, sustainable transportation expert like someone like Dave on the council, we kind of, you know, check that box as someone that knows that. And, you know, perhaps this group wants to spend like a whole meeting or have a subcommittee focused on, you know, how to make the transition in the transportation sector as a part of the 100% renewable goal, because that's a big piece. So yeah, I think maybe we could focus on that at some point.
Vehicles are far and away the biggest source of air pollution and emissions in North Carolina. I mean, and even more so in the western part of North Carolina.
I'd be excited to be part of that, Sam, as a working group. And just for background, I also convene a group called the Asheville Regional Transit Coalition. So those conversations are going on, but with less of a focus on renewable energy. And I think that would be a really powerful place to combine those two focuses.
Well, thanks. I'm going to leave this as it is in the interest of moving on. And if folks want to comment again on this document with more thoughts, I think that's the way forward for this particular line. The last comment is just about adding neighborhood associations as members or representation from neighborhoods, just to incorporate more community leadership with folks who don't traditionally necessarily show up in professional renewable energy and energy or environmental advocacy spaces. So this sounds like, you know, a passionate community member, maybe, who doesn't necessarily work on this, but has a lot of energy and passion and organizing ability maybe to move clean energy forward in a community organizing way.
Seems good to me. Neighborhood, I would say neighborhood and community associations, just to broaden it even further.
Makes me think of homeowners associations.
Which if we can get them on board, that's great. You know, instead of a homeowners organization saying you can't have solar panels, saying when you have to have solar panels.
All right. I'm just mindful of the time here. It's 3:35 and we should move on to the chair and vice chair appointment update.
But just real quick, Sophie, you know, there's still, just want everyone to be mindful, there is still 2 spots available on the community council. We, you know, based on this list here, you know, we're looking to try to find someone from an affordable housing provider space, and also, you know, a person of color that represents community color. We want to support and encourage that participation. So, you know, we haven't had anyone from the community council recommend someone else to fill those 2 seats, but we really would love to get those 2 seats filled earlier than later. So yeah, we just want, you know, please, you can send Sophie and I an email of someone that you would like to nominate, and or, you know, if you have any other ideas, we want to hear them, because that's a very important piece that's missing currently.
And I'm sorry too that there is one more comment on this document. Eliza is commenting that we need to be more intentional about structured public comment in meetings. And I would love all the guidance on this from the community council members as they can give. It could be that after each agenda item, there's a public comment, or on each potential voting agenda item, there's a public comment period. Right now, I've just tried to reserve in the agenda at least 15 minutes toward the end of the meeting, but I'm all ears about other best practices.
Yeah, my thought so far with that was that I just don't want to kind of only have the very last part of the meeting reserved for public comment because I think we can lose important ideas and important things that are happening. Especially kind of hearing Amber talk about the desire to hear about community barriers as part of this process. So my thought was at the very least that we could allow some time for us to discuss or ask follow-up questions of community members after the public comment before we adjourn.
I'll just share one thought. You know, this is a thing that we talk about a lot at the county commission. You know, what's the best way to do it? We've tried probably every different way to do it. One thing we do now is we allow it at the beginning of our meetings, and in that way, if there are things on the agenda that people want to talk about, then they have a chance to speak to them before, you know, the group deliberates on it, or if there is going to be a vote taken, then you make sure you get some of that input in on the front end. And so that's just one thought I'll share. You know, there's benefits of having it at the end too, because people can kind of give you feedback on what they've heard. So there's not necessarily a right way or wrong way to do it. I don't know that, you know, I don't know how often this group will take formal votes on things. That's something we'll just kind of see how it evolves over time. If there are things that are of, you know, really particular significance, then I think it is nice to be able to allow folks to make sure they are able to comment on those either at the beginning of that meeting or, you know, after the group's discussion and prior to a vote.
Makes sense. Okay.
There's comments in the chat about just being mindful that having the council members respond to comments in real time can devolve quickly. And I think we've all been in meetings where we've seen that happen as well. And at the same time, we want to preserve the ability for community members to provide input. So it's a tough balance to strike here.
Yeah. So just follow-up items on this. One is we're gonna basically take all the comments that we talked about today and then put those in the charter and then be able to vote on those at our next meeting. And then please, folks, send us your ideas on 2 new members that you know, have affordable housing background and or have the, you know, minority voice. Oh, great.
Cool. I'm going to stop sharing now so we can move on.
Away from working from home.
All right. Next on the agenda is to review chair and vice chair appointment update. If you're in a place to do that, Sam.
All right, so the chair, vice chair. So last meeting we said if you are interested in becoming chair, vice chair of this fine group of people, please let us know. And I heard from Keith Bamberg that he was interested. He would throw his hat in the ring for being the chair of the group. And I don't believe I heard from anybody else unless your email didn't come to me. So did anyone else express interest or desire to be chair or vice chair of this community council? Did I miss something? Sometimes I can't track every email that comes in. I don't think so. So Keith, will you just kind of talk a little bit about your desire to serve in that role?
Well, I just feel that I would be willing to spend the time to chair the committee. I have experienced managing time in group meetings and classrooms and things like that. And really, it all comes down to respect for people's times and trying to focus the group's energy. It's important and to be efficient with their time because we have so little of it together. And I'd be willing to work towards that. And if you don't want me, I won't be offended. That was a joke, just so you're sure.
Everyone's muted. You can't hear our laughter. But any other comments on what Keith said? Any other? Anybody else want to run for chair? Now's your time. Speak up. No? Okay. Does anyone want to make a motion that Keith is the chair?
Yeah, I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Okay. All in favor, maybe raise your hand. Anyone opposed? No? All right, Keith. You're now our new chair for the Blue Horizon Project Community Council. Thank you for.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thanks, Keith.
So Sophie and I will work with Keith on, some agenda items, and he'll be a part of the leadership moving forward and facilitate the meetings and those sort of things. So we're grateful for your service, Keith. And then we also want to select a vice chair. Is anyone in the group here willing to be the vice chair?
Can you just go back through the responsibilities? I know that part of the role was filling in for the chair. They were unavailable. What else was involved?
Yeah, it's filling in for the chair. Also being a part of some of the meetings where we set the agenda to talk about all right, what's coming next and what do we want to discuss? And, we'll be brought into more conversation related to something like these two new members, maybe reaching out to them personally or something like that. So it's, in terms of facilitation role, it's just facilitating whenever the chair's not there, but otherwise just being part of the agenda setting process.
What are the terms? I mean, is it for a year or how long are we on the council?
That's part of it's to be determined. I think that it's good to have someone in the chair and the vice chair for at least a year. But we have to create some bylaws, which is has information about how long are the terms and how do they get renewed and is there any sunsetting and those sort of things. So
the current charter does actually say 3-year terms, but that does not mean that the vice chair and chair have to be in those positions for 3 years. I think traditionally in other boards or commissions, it's 1-year terms for those particular positions.
I kind of feel like easing into my role, so I would definitely defer to somebody else who would want to do it.
Eliza, would you be interested in serving?
I don't know that I have the capacity. I could think about it. I have so many things I'm doing right now.
I know you're involved in a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Probably add one more 1-hour meeting a month, essentially. Yeah.
Can we come back to it? Do we have to decide right now, or?
You don't have to decide right now. I mean, the main thing is to be able to turn it over to Keith to be able to facilitate the next meeting and then, start the process of involving someone on the council in the agenda setting process. So yeah, if y'all are okay with it, we'll just, we'll delay that decision to next meeting.
If I don't have a co-chair, I'll just call one of you the night before and say, could you do the meeting?
There you go. And you can always ask Sophie or I to do it too. We'll be able to stand in.
I know.
Okay. All right, great. Well, thank you, Keith, and thanks everybody else. All right, what's next, Sophie?
Yeah, so I've built in a little flexibility to today's agenda. We're just running 10 minutes behind so far, but next is partner and member updates and discussion. First, we'd like to hear from Ned Doyle with an overview of the Tech Committee's discussion and work around the Pratt and Whitney project and its energy implications. So Ned, take it away.
Well, thank you very much. I've got some material here I'll read from, and I've got some assessments to wrap it up. I'll do it as quickly as possible here. The gist of it, for my presentation right now, is the upshot of last week's tech committee meeting, where we discussed the Pratt and Whitney project and those ramifications. And we, as far as I can tell, unanimously came up with a general plan project to address it, and agreed that we needed to bring it to the attention of the entire community council to get comments, buy-in, approval, disapproval, whatever. So that's kind of the gist of the central point of where I'm going with today, to make you aware of what we're doing here. I do have a document that I can share subsequent to our meeting here. I was persuaded to sit on it until after our discussion today, which provides some of the background. And I'm going to read some through that, but I'm trying not to go too far. I think most of you are aware from the media and our meetings here that Buncombe County, Duke Energy, and others have been in discussions with Pratt and Whitney and Raytheon for about a year and a half now. And they're looking at establishing a 1 million square foot facility on the banks of the French Broad River. $650 million expenditure is the number going around. Approximately 800 jobs allegedly going to be created by it. The land has already been at the beginnings of the clearing and grading and so forth. And a lot's actually been happening in the last week. Yesterday, the Board of Adjustments issued a conditional permit for the construction on the site. So things are locked in for a large percentage of it there. And counties put up 27 million in incentives, and I think there was another 30 million from the state. So our discussions on that, realized that it's really a complicated situation. This is not just another housing development that's coming in, which sidebar, but there's a lot of that happening too, and that relates back to our discussions here. In this particular case, we've got what I described as 6 different basic stakeholders with the Pratt and Whitney project that will be impacted. In no particular order here, Raytheon, Pratt and Whitney itself, Duke Energy and Dominion, Biltmore Development, NGOs and community groups such as the Blue Horizons Project, and the general public. So it's as I put before, it's seriously complicated. It's not that easy a thing to address. And unfortunately, that's my term at this point. If this goes through the way it's currently appears to be presented, it's likely to be a huge elephant in the room to our stated goals of clean energy, sustainability, and so forth, based on the electrical demand, the natural gas usage, and so forth. We've gone over this and discussed it a bit. And let's see where from the text. Multiple conversations and discussions to date within the Tech Advisory Committee have unanimously concurred that the most likely productive strategy is cooperation and collaboration in order to support, influence, and guide economic energy-related plans as currently presumed, such as the increase in natural gas, electrical demand, lack of any advanced energy infrastructure planning in the region, and the possibility with this of a new peaker plant, which we supposedly got passed, but it's all going to do that. So to these ends, the Tech Advisory Committee seeks to understand by starting with questions and then proceeding based on what is learned from those answers. Now, I'm going to give you some examples. These are not finished questions. If we do move forward, the Tech Advisory Committee will refine them. So, you know, keep that in mind. These are examples of it to give you a sense of what our conversations have been. What investments in significant energy efficiency and building science are the parties planning to make? What investments in clean energy production, such as solar, are the parties planning to make? What investments in advanced energy infrastructure, such as energy storage and microgrids, are the parties planning to make? What investments in cost-effective technologies, such as geothermal and building science, are the parties planning to make? What studies of long-term cost-effective energy policy and implementation have been made? So it kind of gives you a sense of it. So our current strategy, as it were, is to submit a refined list of these questions to the primary stakeholders in this, in terms of Raytheon, Pratt & Whitney, the subsidiary, and so forth, Duke Energy, Dominion, and Biltmore Development, primarily. And secondarily with this, Buncombe County and the city of Asheville, as well as the public, to get a handle on where we're at. So there's a little more to it, but it's a written document, so I'll let it go from there. I think that I've been paying attention to this deeply for many weeks right now, and I hope and support moving forward on this in some form or fashion and another, in order to support and provide some technical assistance to it. But as I pointed out at our last tech meeting, our real challenge in this, the tech committee, and I believe with the community council as well, really has nothing to do with the technical aspect of it. The tech committee has got fantastic capacity to deal with technical issues, and in a manner of speaking, between all of us and then connections, we've got the answers to any of these questions right now. Sounds, I don't know, maybe that doesn't sound too humble, but it's the bottom line. We've got some massively talented people with extreme experience here, but we don't know what answers to provide until we ask the questions. Well, the upshot at this point is that I'm trying to use the right words here to be nice to everybody and sensitive, but it's pretty much baked in right now. The possibility, probability that we can make any significant or substantive changes, advances to this project, now that the conditional use permit is issued, the fact that so much has been done already for the last year or so, I think it's important that we temper our expectations on this, because something could be done, but we're already missing the boat on geothermal. As far as I can tell, there's no commitment to solar. There's no commitment from Duke Energy for actual distributed generation technology, infrastructure in context with this. And it's all overlaid by the fact that as big and as difficult it will be to absorb the impact from the Raytheon, that they call it Project Ranger, apparently. I saw that today in one of the news releases. So forgive me if I am seen on the street calling it Project Danger. This is my energy background here. But there's no plan. What happens when the next facility of this size and magnitude comes here? For the time being, we're a magnet for this, and we don't have any structure, any framework at this point to be able to absorb this. And I think there's a fundamental difference with this project in relation to what we've done with the Blue Horizons project and EITF previously, and the really positive and wonderful things that have been achieved, the energy efficiency, the weatherization programs, the city and county going with the solar, the whole range. We've won awards for this stuff. It's been great, and I've been in the beginning, so pat a few backs. But this is an elephant in the room. It's not the same thing as our incremental, goal-oriented approach to meet 2030, 2050, and so on. We don't know. As our new president would say, it's a big F deal. So, I hope you'll support this, but I think it's important to understand that we have to measure our resources and energy and expectations in this. It's really there's minimal hope that anything significant will be able to be done. And we are going to see the demand go up for electricity. We're running a new risk for another peaker plant. Even if we trim back on some natural gas at Lake Julian, the site itself is going to be a big user of natural gas. There's traffic, there's infrastructure, there's cost to the taxpayer, and all that. And for all that, and I'm just about wrapped up here, we specifically did agree that our focus, if we move forward, would be the economics of the energy picture from this project, not land use, not the water, not French Broad and so forth, and infrastructure. So we're not going to eat an elephant one bite at a time. So that's our focus on it there. So I leave it for discussion and consideration and feedback, support and criticism too. Open to anything. Thank you.
I do know that the air quality permit was issued for the plant earlier this month. So if you want to have a good idea how much carbon it's going to add to the formula, the information's there. Though it's all, well, I call it, it's predictive, it's tentative at this point but it has maximum limits.
I'm going to demonstrate some ignorance here, but I guess to the extent that our ability to use regulations as a stick are over, are there any carrots that we could use to incentivize at this point cleaner energy sources? I mean, is there anything left that we could look at?
I think if I can answer that, that was from the standpoint of our discussions in the tech committee, and I'll be as quick as I can and then let others jump in. Highlighting and pointing out the economic benefits of the efficiency, sustainable energy, and so forth is kind of the central core of our effort to show them the economic benefits of long-term investment and planning. Not necessarily this particular act with this particular rebate. All that would certainly all be included, but it is the one example we kept coming around. The payback for a geothermal system is amazing. If you're only counting up profits for 1 quarter, forget it. If you're actually looking at it over a period of time, it's phenomenal. And I mean, I'll let anybody else jump in from the tech committee, but I think everybody unanimously felt that pointing out the economic benefits of doing it right would be our main argument or whatever position. Thank you.
And so what are you, you're kind of saying we should decide if we're going to continue to pursue this and ask all these questions, Ned? I mean, we have the people to talk to and stuff like that?
Yes and no. I'm going to run for office. How's that? Yes, there's a tentative list and tentative contacts for most of the parties in their felt, and that's no barrier. The problem so far has been shall we say, a reluctance to have any kind of conversation, and it's all been pushed off to the end of this month, of February. We can't talk about this. We're not going to talk about that. The time to discuss it is, which is what I've done. And basically stalled, to be nice about it. And seeing the conditional use permit come out yesterday and so forth. Yes, it's not a question of who to talk to. I can give you a list, but it's not a question of who to talk to. It's when we can do it. And the horse is out of the barn, in my opinion, at this point. And again, the words are important: substantive and significant advances on the project. They'll be great. They were really proud of it being an aesthetically pleasing building. Well, that's nice, but
Ned, have you looked into the? I think I brought this up before. But have you looked at the Energy Star certification for manufacturing?
Yes, we've taken not deeply. Let me be clear, but yes, we've looked at that and discussed it. the claim, the statement was that they're going for silver LEED certification for the facility on the industrial level, which is, you know, I'm a bit cynical on it, but it's like say, yeah, we put in fluorescence instead of incandescent bulbs. Well, nice, but we really could use LEDs in this. So the amount of commitment in terms of the LEED program, you know, what levels. I mean, maybe they'll bump it up. Yeah, I'm not trying to be totally negative on it, but out of the chute, it's just really nice greenwashing, and they don't really have a track record for any doing this in that fashion.
Yeah, what we like about Energy Star, it's performance based, so it's actually measured versus like I said before. I think it's come up versus LEED, which is it's kind of a static, you know, snapshot and a checklist. And it's gone a long way towards, I mean, increasing, you know, understanding of VOCs and brownfield development and whatnot. But yeah, we've gotten away from it on our campus because it just wasn't aggressive enough on the energy piece.
Ned, I'm curious if the conditional permit was a surprise to you that was coming out. I'm just hoping that we can stay in the loop with some of these big developments with this site and other sites. And I don't know if that's just over the Google group that we have, but whenever there are these points of leverage, I think it would be good for us to be able to connect about them.
Yes. Candidly, I knew it was underway, but I was surprised yesterday that when I got the note, oh, they're meeting today and they're approving it today and we're moving on. So
okay.
in a certain sense, I dropped the ball, I guess, but there wouldn't have been anything to do. It's a foregone conclusion that they're going to move it to $650 million. You know what talks and you know what walks.
So I mean, I think it's a lot of good work. I mean, I do feel like I like the moving forward in the spirit of cooperation and collaboration. I mean, I feel like the tech committee's had a lot of success. I mean, just, you know, sort of watching you all work over the last, you know, however many years. I mean, I wonder if we can get them to present to us about what they're going to do, and maybe start meeting people, or what do you, I don't know what some, I mean, and also I like your idea about how can we think about this better moving forward as more and more developments come in. I think those are really, but I would I don't know what the appropriate steps would be, but I would be interested in meeting people or whatever from Pratt and Whitney and learning about what they're thinking and getting them to tell us about their plans.
I like that idea, kind of inviting them into our room.
Yeah. Yes. I don't know if Peter's on the call here, Moffitt. You'll see the screen, but he's significantly pushed and suggested that we bring Pratt and Whitney here to the Blue Horizons Council meeting and introduce them. And I'm all for that. I'm trying to temper expectations as opposed to anything. But I should point out that looking at this again in the detail ahead, it's very, very important, in my view, that these discussions include the primary stakeholders at the same time. If we talk once with Pratt and Whitney, we talk once with Duke Energy, we talk once with Dominion, and they're all individual conversations, it's going to be tough to get anywhere, because in order to get anywhere, there has to be some cooperation between those parties. Only one example, Pratt and Whitney might say, well, yeah, we'll be glad to put in some energy storage on the site. Well, is Duke Energy going to provide the background support and encouragement to do that? Who's going to pay? You see what I'm saying? All these things are interlinked. So it's a very, very complicated situation. So I'm thrilled to talk to them one at a time, but we have to have, in my view, an understanding that we got to talk to them all at once on the same page and get a good understanding of what each is willing to commit to, what they're not. And again, that comes back to why we want to ask questions. I've made some assumptions and I could very well be wrong, but that's why the questions that's our approach with the questions, is to find out what's really going on and determine if it's possible to do something or just too late.
This is Bill Maloney on the tech committee. just following up what Phelps said and what's been discussed, would there be a way that at the next Zoom meeting, we could have a decision maker from Pratt and Whitney and maybe the appropriate person from Duke Energy, so we could, either a plant manager, divisional president, or somebody that could connect with this, who could make some choices, who could explain to us some of the things that they are doing. And we could explain to them some of the great cost savings that maybe they haven't looked at, and develop some kind of a partnership going forward, and do the same thing with some other companies. Maybe Brownie or Keith, you might be the people, or I'm not sure who, to make that invitation to Pratt and Whitney. But as people are saying, unless we get those people with us in a meeting like this, so they trust us and vice versa, I think that would be the first step to move this ahead.
Well, I agree, Bill. And maybe, I'm not sure exactly which meeting you meant. It seems like it might be more appropriate to start with a Zoom meeting with the tech committee and then move it up from there to the community council meeting. I'm just bringing it out there. But the question is, who, at what point are we willing to get someone to speak? I've been put off and stalled, so it's going to be February. I mean, there's a timing thing here. The longer we wait, the longer the stall, the less the flexibility there is to do anything. So I'm ready to move forward and be more active, but we all agreed that we got to get permission from the big council here before anything goes on. So that is a partial angle to this. I can't get a conversation, and I don't have permission yet. So here I am.
It sounds like, Ned, in order to move forward with your effort, you need a motion and a vote here. Is that correct?
Well, yes, I believe so. I think that reflects the consensus and agreement on the tech committee that we shouldn't do anything, move forward until the community council makes a determination that we should take a next step, which specifically is my understanding would be to refine the list of questions and get them out in writing as soon as possible.
So as we're going through these questions, I'm sure that we on this council aren't the only people who are having these questions. And my thought is, or wondering if we should encourage the greater community to invite these partners together and have a forum or a conversation with them, because clearly we're not the only people affected, and there have got to be 10,000 questions out there by the community. Everybody from the Arboretum members who are going to have a lot more trouble getting into the Arboretum as the project gets built, and our questions are certainly key to us, but there are other people, and I'm wondering who should have that meeting. I mean, we could certainly invite them to this meeting and invite them to present here, but I would think that this would then become the most populated meeting that Blue Horizons has ever had, because we'd have hundreds of people coming to listen and answer these other questions. So I don't know if that's planned by them, or if anybody's asked them to do that. So that's just, as far as your
Keith,
go ahead, Ned, sorry.
No, just to let you know, we discussed that. I've discussed that with a number of people on the tech committee. I don't think it was a huge topic at the last meeting, but encouraging other interested stakeholders in the community to do exactly what you just suggested is to ask the questions. Because again, our complete agreement is to try to do this in a positive, collaborative, cooperative way, and not just go marching in, waving banners, wearing horns on our heads and breaking furniture, but to say, hey, what can we do to help? Where are you going with this? and answer our questions, and then say, well, what are we going to do? How can we help and get a clearer picture on it? So, yes, I like it.
Sorry.
No, go ahead.
We all should be really excited about this project, and we are concerned, but everybody is, but it is going to be good for the economy of the region. There's some great benefits for it. But how to become a partner in that. And again, like I said earlier, having that room or that occasion to get to know the people and everything would be really good. I don't know if Pratt and Whitney's ready for that or if they'll ever be ready for that. These are just so as far as your intent to develop the questions, I think that you should, develop those questions, and then we can look for a forum to ask them, even if we have to make the forum. But I'm in favor of your committee doing that.
Yeah, so I agree that that forum, the broader community forum, sounds valuable. I'm also concerned that it sounds like there's some time sensitivity right now to the tech group being able to move forward and ask some of these questions. And I feel like in terms of focusing on what we can control and what's really in our wheelhouse, I would support giving them permission to move forward and have that conversation now. I don't think that would keep us from talking about broader community input. I'm just worried about this being an opportunity where we could make a really big shift in energy demand, if at all possible.
To that point, we touched on that a bit too, that the farther the project goes with business as usual, the more baked in it's going to be. And problems with different aspects of this, water quality, the river, traffic, and so on, are more easily, well, that's the wrong word, but they're more likely to be able to be addressed as we go along and problems arise and there's a bottleneck and congestion, well, put in turn lanes or whatever. But once you make a commitment to natural gas, it's in there for 20, 30 years. Once you make a commitment to the design and the final building, that stuff's, it's there. They're not going to change it for understandable reasons. So yes, there's a time element, I believe, for the economics and the energy aspect of it, in a bit more time, and I'm not trying to stall them, but a bit more time for some of the other ancillary issues.
Yeah, this is a huge thing. I'm glad we're spending time on it today. We are kind of running short on time in our meeting today, but I hear one request, Ned, is that you'd like this body basically to endorse you asking these questions for Pratt and Whitney. Is that correct? Am I hearing that right?
It broke up a little bit, but yes, I think so.
Okay. So does someone want to make a motion that basically the tech committee can go ahead and send these questions on? Is everyone good with that?
I'll make that motion.
Okay.
Second.
Great. All right. All in favor? Wave your hand. All right. Okay. And then, Ned, please, and I know that Taylor, you've been following this as well, and other people in the tech committee. So keep us in the loop. And Brownie, you as well. I know that, I don't know if you're having conversation with them or not, but any way we can insert ourselves into the communication with them around this would be super helpful.
Sure. I'll just share a couple of thoughts. The company has committed to the LEED Silver certification process, which I know is not, a super ambitious standard at this point in the, where we're at. But it is good that it means they're at least thinking about some of these issues or have some intention to think about them in terms of the design and operation of the building. And so I'll just say too, in all the conversations I've had with them, I have emphasized that these issues are a top priority for Buncombe County, and that for such a large new facility, there are going to be very significant opportunities. And I believe there are. I think it's still quite early in the process of building this project. There might be certain things that you know, the window will close on, but I think there's many very significant opportunities. And one good thing is that if they're going through a LEED certification process, it means they're likely engaging either staff or consultants who are going to be specifically focused on this. So I will work to see if we can identify more who are the right people either in the organization or who they're going to be contracting with who are going to be focused on this. And I think it'd be great if they can have conversations with folks like the tech committee to get ideas and incorporate those into their plans. I think one of the best things we could do is to, you know, they didn't say that they were going to build a LEED Silver certified facility. They said that was the minimum that they would do. So I think one of the best things we could do would be really just, you know, encourage them to think bigger, think more ambitiously, really look at different specific technology options in terms of energy efficiency. And, you know, and as Ned rightly said, you know, run the financial analysis on them, which I think for as many people on, you know, in this meeting know, many of them are very attractive from a purely financial standpoint, in addition to the climate benefits or other environmental benefits of them. I mean, this is a big, sophisticated organization. If there's a good business case to be made for a lot of these decisions, they're likely to make them. You know, for myself, the part that I've tried to kind of advocate for in a more focused way than the energy efficiency aspects of it, which are not as much my area of expertise, is the potential for utilization of renewable energy in the operation of their new facility. It is a big facility, 1 million square feet. It'll be one of the biggest facilities in Western North Carolina, brand new, flat roof. So it's the inherent design of the facility is highly amenable to development of a very significant renewable energy project for on-site use and possibly even exporting renewable energy. So I have encouraged them to take a hard look at that, and not just as a small pilot project, which they've done at some of their other facilities, but really doing something meaningful. And am continuing to do that in my role as County Commission Chair. I think they are willing to listen, and I will push them to, you know, really take a hard look at what the really significant opportunities there are. You know, just a couple of other thoughts I'll share too, maybe a little bit more glass half full. You know, the company is focused on manufacturing components for airplane engines, both commercial and military. You know, this new modern manufacturing facility will be, and as I'm sure everyone here knows, you know, the aviation space is a very significant contributor to the country's greenhouse gas emissions. The technology that will be manufactured at this facility are going to result in dramatic greenhouse gas reductions compared to the commercial and military engine technologies that they will be replacing. So there are a lot of very significant, I mean, if you want to see greenhouse gas emissions go down nationally in the aviation space, facilities like this are actually they're actually essential to doing that. So anyway, these are all good questions, but I think there's very significant opportunities, and, you know, definitely am interested in working with folks to engage those.
Brownie, very quickly, just almost yes or no, with the conditional use permit issued yesterday, are there publicly available plans for the building connected with that approval? I mean, did they submit a set of plans we can look at? I don't know. I'm asking.
And I didn't go to the Board of Adjustments meeting, so I'm not sure exactly what plans they presented, but I'm sure they did present plans for that kind of land use permitting approval. Yeah, I'm sure they did. They probably don't go into a lot of the details of, like, you know, it's more of a land use approval. They're not going into details around the energy operations of the facility and things like that, which are not really the purview of the Board of Adjustments.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
All right, we need to move on here because David King has a large presentation he wants to share with us too. But I want to just do a brief update from Hannah on Energy Savers Network, which is our low-income weatherization program.
Hey all, I'm Hannah Egan, Outreach and Resource Coordinator with Energy Savers Network. Just updating, since July 1st, we have had 85 homes scheduled. We were able to serve 62 of those. A lot of that has to do with COVID. This year has been challenging to say the least due to COVID. We've had to change a lot of our protocols when it comes to, it takes a lot more coordinating on our end, getting as much information as possible from clients beforehand, making sure things are sanitized, keeping household occupancy that we serve as low as possible the day that we're out. Another challenge we've encountered is client recruitment. Typically we go to community markets, food pantries, Evelyn charities. We get to talk to the community face to face, let them know what we do. I think that helps gain trust between our organization and them. We've had brochures, flyers sent out to lots of other organizations and partners to hand out, and done some social media outreach. Some of that has worked. But it's just does not have the same effect as doing face-to-face with people. A good thing from that though is that our clients do seem to be really happy with the work that we've been doing, and they've pretty much been keeping our program afloat. They've been referring us to friends, family members, neighbors that they think could use our free services. So that's been really reassuring for us to know that they're happy with what we've been doing. Also, another, as far as COVID goes, it's been both sides. Lots of clients have been canceling due to COVID. We've had to cancel due to COVID, potential COVID exposures. So that's just like the world we're living in right now. But something that's working really well for us is our new project manager, Kelvin Bonilla. He has been amazing. He's our building science expert. He has trained all of our new team members and our United Community Development crew. So I think while our quantity of work is not where we'd like it to be, our quality has improved greatly. At homes where we've been able to do a diagnostic blower door test, we've seen great results. So yeah, in order to just keep things brief and to keep things moving, that's a basic update with Energy Savers Network.
Thanks so much, Hannah. And we're talking about since July 1st, because that's the start date of our city and county contracts. They run on the fiscal year, July 1st to June 30th. So we're a little more than halfway through our contract period. I'm going to give a brief update on the Solarize Asheville Buncombe campaign. The new year has hit the ground running. The RFP to choose the solar installer or installers is in progress. It's being drafted now, and the leadership team, the Solarize committee, is going to be working on that draft. And then we have subcommittees now developed for the workforce development portion of this campaign, as well as the low and moderate income portion of this campaign, and they are going to be reviewing relevant portions of the RFP here in the next week or two as well. We plan to release the RFP to the public on February 1st, select an installer or installers in early March, and the campaign will officially launch in April. And that's all I have on Solarize. We can skip over the next item, agenda logistics and timing. I just wanted to say, if anyone ever has agenda items, send them to me at least a week in advance. And then any other updates before we get started with David King's presentation?
All right, let's go to David.
Oh, sorry, one sec. Oh, David's already started.
Can,
Go ahead, yeah, that's okay. We'll get to this next time from just a readout of yesterday's meeting, but we'll get to that next time. Get started, David. Sorry about that.
Yeah, no problem. No problem. Just move you guys over here. So yeah, I mean, first of all, thanks for just Sam and Sophie, for everyone just to give me a chance to kind of share what we've been doing at Western for the past couple of years. So I'll try to squeeze, I've got 30 minutes. I'll try to squeeze a 45-minute presentation into 30. And Sophie, if you just want to step in and tell me when there's time for public comment, and maybe after 5, I'll try to finish it. We'll just see where we're at. To be honest, I don't want to rush through it. So I'm David King, the energy manager at Western Carolina, and also oversee the building automation systems for campus, or known as BAS. So that's the control. That's actually the software that runs the HVAC equipment. So, and one thing I wanted to add, I don't mention at this point, I'm sure some of you are wondering why is Western involved with Asheville? I personally live in West Asheville, and we also have a campus. I'm actually working here at Biltmore Park today. So Western has a campus right. I'm sure many of you are familiar with REI, so just across the road from REI. So yeah, happy, excited to be back involved in what's going on in Asheville. So our campus at a glance, it's a beautiful place to work, 12,000 students. As many of you know, an hour and a half southwest of here, and very much it operates like a city. So we have our own central steam plant. We distribute steam to 2/3 of campus. We have a huge feed from Duke for our campus, and then we resale to 3,000 local residents. And we have our own crews that work on trees and respond to power outages. We're one of 2 schools, ourselves and App State, that have our own water treatment plant. Just because of the rural location, we treat our own water and distribute that to all the buildings in the nearby community. So let's dig into this. So according to the EPA, commercial buildings waste on average 30% of their energy. So for that reason, what we're focused on is demand side management. And Ken sent out a document yesterday. It was just kind of music to my ears, and I realized I'm certainly going to like working with Ken. So most of that, demand side management, that's just a fancy way of saying, let's get shedding the waste, right? So one of the most common examples, many of us were pretty aware of when we turn out lights, leaving a room, but how many of us know, like an office, what about the thermostat? Is it still heating and cooling after hours? Is it running on the weekends? So for that reason, we're focused on the demand side management. A lot of the news and excitement is certainly on the generation, switching from coal to natural gas, renewables, and all part of the discussion, but some of the greatest opportunities are on that demand side management. So how do we approach that? That's mostly through our software, that building automation systems, and I'll show you guys some examples of that. So again, the Educational Advisory Board shows that 80% of short-term energy costs and utilizations reside on demand side management. So that 30% waste, I certainly want to reiterate the point here. This is an older graph at this point, but it certainly bears, it's still worth sharing. This is from 2008. So in Asheville, we used to have coal, and this time last year we swapped to natural gas. So the efficiency of that coal plant was around 35, in the mid 30s in terms of efficiency. Swapping over to natural gas certainly helped. I think we're up around talking to one of the plant managers there, it's probably in the mid 40s or so. So just to simplify the math, let's say that plant was actually 50% efficient, right? And so we have 100 units of energy in that natural gas. We lose 50% of that energy. So let's say the grid now, we've got 50% of that energy going out to the grid. And let's just ignore transmission losses and whatnot. So what reaches your building, whether it's your house or your commercial building, that's a 2-to-1 ratio. So it takes 2 units of energy to the 1 energy that reaches your house. So going back to that 30% of energy that's wasted, if you're wasting 30% at your building, whether it's your home or your commercial building, that's a 60% waste at the power plant because of that 2-to-1 ratio. So that just bears repeating that. Incredible opportunity here is the takeaway here. So what I wanted to share, just kind of what we've been doing here and what can apply best to Blue Horizon. So at a snapshot, here's where we are at Western. So we're at 1.2 million in avoided costs. And that's been a combination of metering and energy savings. So like I said before, we have a central steam plant. And in the past, we were paying $1 million for natural gas. And the way that works, we pay that we're acting as a utility, we're paying it at that steam plant, and then we would bill residential living and dining halls and whatnot. But for us, the problem with steam, it's extremely difficult to meter. And the technology we had in place was not the right match. So instead of measuring steam, we decided to measure the water. As steam's cooled, it's returned to the plant as water. So why not measure the water instead of the steam? So it doesn't capture everything, but it was better than the solution we had in place. So once we started increasing, what we were missing, we started every year capturing about $100,000 of revenue we were missing. And not just missed revenue, but we really, when I got there, I tried to, benchmark our buildings just to kind of measure the energy of them. And we didn't have sufficient data. I was only able to measure 5 buildings out of 40. So we really needed that metered information to kind of really get a picture of where we were at, which is the process of benchmarking. So the green columns here, the first year budget we had for any kind of energy projects was $22,000. And that, across a campus of 3 million square feet does not go very far. So slowly, year by year, we were able to achieve some small in-house programs or savings through scheduling and whatnot. And really what I want to show you guys today was our building tune-ups. That's what I'm really here to try to convey. And that's really what got us to the savings of 103,000 here. This is the green column right here. And at that point, that's when our business officer sat down and she's like, well, how did you get to 100,000 and how can we do more of this? And at that point, I was the energy manager, the energy analyst. I was installing meters and also doing hot and cold calls. So, my argument was just we need another position, a controls technician to respond to hot and cold calls. And that's been huge. So just taking that off my plate, we've been able to develop kind of a 2-man team in-house. And this next year, we're actually trying to move the views off my screen. So yeah, next year, the projected here, we're actually on task to save about $175,000 in savings. So what I wanted to mention too was House Bill 1292, and I think this is a funding mechanism that can apply to any business within the Blue Horizons community. So in the past, if your campus utilities was $4 million and you saved $100,000, then the next year the budget from the state, they would give you $3.9 million. So there's actually a disincentive to save energy. And it wasn't until House Bill 1292 was passed about 8 years ago that if you showed that you had that $100,000 of savings, if you could show and meter it, you could actually retain that $100,000 and put it back towards other efficiency projects. So that's been a game changer for us. And one thing that I'd like to see in the future, that's to kind of make it more about people, why not take a portion of that 100,000 and create some student scholarships so that, we're not just talking about mechanical equipment and software at that point. Now we're talking about putting faces to that. So that's what we'd like to see in the future. So another way of looking at this, I just wanted to show you how this grew over time. So here's every year we're adding more projects with that. And I've said this one time before. So today, these projects we're at 1.8 million kilowatt hours saved. So that's the equivalent of adding a megawatt of solar to campus, and about $2 a watt or 2,000 kilowatt. That's like adding $2 million of solar. And I really like this quote here from Bill Gates here. He says, typically people overestimate what they can do in 1 year and they underestimate what they can achieve in 10. So, this is certainly very humble beginnings here and very small, but you can kind of see this becomes a positive feedback loop pretty quickly. And this last fiscal year we have here, we've actually secured another $300,000 of funding. And with that, we're upgrading our control software. To date, so our campus as a whole, we have a 47% reduction in energy usage intensity. So that's how efficient we are per square foot. And so they say if you have good news to show, that you put that in a chart, a graph, and if you have bad news, you put it in a table. So here's our table. More concerning with that is actually our CO2 emissions, right? So you guys have already mentioned E80, it's the governor's goal. And so here's to reduce emissions by 40% by 2025. And it's a subtle distinction, but it's not 40% per square foot. It's a total 40%. And that's a much more aggressive goal. And we're only, if I can move the screen here. Well, let me do it. But so we're not, we're not at that goal, close to that goal at all right now. So the point here is you need to, examine total energy and emissions, and not just how efficient you are per square foot. You really have to look at the big picture. The goal I have here, and I can't actually see it on my slide, but for next year projection, if we were to unoccupy 10 buildings on the weekends, that we could jump another 5% and get to a 13% reduction in emissions. So this is all just through scheduling through that control software. So how do we determine, going back to the theme of building tune-ups, right? So how do we, just give me some of the background here of how do we pick out the best building for that project? And how do we pick out the best candidate? So it's a busy slide here, but let's just kind of digest this. So looking at three different variables here, right? So first of all, this is a globe chart or a bubble chart, and the biggest globe here, is our library. So 300, this is total utility costs. This is all water, all energy at $300,000 a year, right? And so what I was curious to compare that was the building age, right? So I saw a lot of campuses that were becoming more efficient, reducing their energy. We're also tearing down a lot of old buildings and putting up new buildings. So I was really kind of curious to see how we were doing with that and looking at our average building age. And the third number here, as energy managers and analysts, we really always dig into is the energy usage intensity. So this is how much energy we're using per square foot. So everything so here's our campus average, right? If I take all our energy for the year and divide up our square foot, it's 95,000 BTUs for every square foot. So BTU, there's the same energy as one match. So this is 95,000 matches for every square foot of campus. So it's a pretty astronomical amount of energy. So every building to the right of this line here uses more energy than our campus average. And everything above this line here is newer. So the question for the buildings in this quadrant, they're newer and they're using more energy. So these are the ones that bear more investigation, right? And so that's, when I was showing some of this, we're doing a webinar for some other colleagues around the state, some other energy managers. And, I thought one of the great comments was from App State, their analyst up there, Patrick Richardson. He had a simple but really powerful comment. He just said, well, the bigger your target, the bigger your opportunity. So going back and just looking at taking it from that approach, here's our 4 or 5 of our biggest targets. These are the most expensive buildings we have on campus. So, throw out the EUI and whatnot, let's just look at the most expensive buildings. And, focus on these that are newer, right? So if you have buildings pre-1981, these buildings down here, you're really sort of a major renovation, millions of dollars. There's not a whole lot you can do. So let's focus on the ones that have new equipment and new control software. And keeping in mind that there's no perfect building, there's definitely, we've seen plenty of buildings we've taken 10 and 20% off. So kind of following Patrick's idea, I pulled out the 5 buildings the 5 largest buildings. And again, we have to have that meter data in place in order to do this. But those 5 buildings were, more than $1 million worth of our usage. That's, let's say our campus was about $4 million in utilities. That 5 buildings used 25% of all our utilities. So pretty clearly that kind of helps set our focus for where our opportunities were. And just kind of going down here, you can see the top 15 buildings out of our 40 biggest buildings account for half of all our usage. One final way of looking at this, was to kind of visualize this here on the campus map. So I kind of wanted to put that utility number, the cost, on a map. And I gave this to a handful of people, the decision makers we have, and our capital projects, our director of that, he's never discussed EUI. But I definitely have heard him since this talk about, our science building Stillwell. That's one of the $200,000 buildings, and the library. We need to start looking at doing some renovations. So the point here is, you need to be able to tell a story, not just be able to tell it, but to tell a story that someone else can retell. whether that's through data visualization or just creating some simple metrics and simple graphs, So this has been quite effective just to kind of paint that picture. Kind of jumping ahead to one of the programs that I think is pretty amazing that I've been trying to track is the city of Seattle. So they have, it's actually a mandate, buildings over 50,000 square feet are actually required to report their energy usage and to take part in a building tune-up program. So I sent a link out and you can certainly look this up. So here's an example of an office building, right? So if you see this little red dot here, the site energy usage intensity is quite high. Most office buildings in this region use about 46,000 BTUs. And this one's quite high. And you can see the score is 12, which on their scale is quite low. So it's pretty, nice, powerful tool, easy to interpret, and this building is built in 1902. So kind of, again, back to the point, with a building envelope from that era, the mechanical system could be from the 50s or 60s. There's no telling, So you're looking at a major capital investment really to kind of move the energy needle in any direction. So again, kind of going back to looking at the bigger opportunities on their same site. So you have this little sliding scale actually. So I actually slid their scale down to buildings that are 200,000 square feet, big buildings up to 500,000. And also you can slide the year. So I slid it up to buildings 1991 or newer. And you can see here all the green dots that represent Seattle. And to me, and I have to go back and confirm this. So on the Energy Star scale, that to me appears to have a fantastic score. But keep in mind, you're comparing, let's say one of these is an office building. You're comparing an office building from the 90s to an office building from the 1900s. I mean, it's not really a fair competition. So the point I'm trying to make here, are we overlooking opportunities on newer buildings just because they compare favorably to old buildings? And again, kind of making the point again, there's no perfect building. I don't care if it's a showcase building. The building I'm going to show you today, we can go through, you can find something pretty quickly. And if you have a $200,000 building and you can take 10% off of it, that's $20,000 and also emissions. So finally, let's get into the building tune-up. I know that's a long kind of lead up to it, but it's kind of a story. It kind of bears worth telling the build up to it, how to select it, the meter that needs to be in place to kind of make those decisions, make those database decisions. And the other thing I'll say here that was kind of a red flag, this building, this is our Health and Human Science building, came online in 2012, it was LEED Gold, really beautiful camp building. And if any of you have had a chance to go out there, it looks like some sort of Google headquarters off the campus. That's pretty impressive. So like I said, one of the red flag was that this building for the first couple of years had comfort complaints, and so for a new building, that's something to go up right there. And those issues are really kind of, you can interpret as issues or you can show that it's an opportunity. So kind of breaking down the term building tune-up, I would liken this to how you would, think of your car. I feel like all metaphors seem to go back to the car, right? So most of us, when we get to 100,000 miles, we know it's time to check the belts, the hoses, timing belts, and we're familiar with the maintenance that needs to be done. Well, it's no different for a building, all the mechanical systems and the software even. So this building can actually, the state, any kind of state construction project has to go through, you have to have a third-party engineer go through and commission the building. So that had been done and it was done well, but the commissioning that takes place is much more at a component level. And the tune-up, the building tune-up, it's more focused on how the whole system works, not just that individual component, but how the whole system works. And most of that system is run through that software. This is the building automation I keep talking about. And so what you're looking at here is a live thermographic floor plan. This is the actual temperatures at that building. So if the temperature is within its set point, it's green. Let's say it's between 70 and 74, it's green and it's happy. If it's yellow, it's slightly warm and it's cooling, or sorry, it's cooling. And if it's blue, it's a little cold, so it's actively heating. As you get further away from the set points, there's a dark blue. And so, and if it's even further out, very cold or very hot, it shows up as red. So very powerful tool to use to kind of look through a large amount of campus quickly. So for our building tune-up, we hired Chris Martin. He's was the old energy manager out of UNC Chapel Hill, and his firm, McKim & Creed. So the results here, we ended up taking 15% off this building. So that's 400,000 kilowatt hours. So keep in mind, it takes a pound of coal. When we had coal, it took a pound of coal to generate a pound or 1 kilowatt hour. So that's 400,000 pounds of coal. The project cost about $30,000 for consulting, no hardware required. And we recovered that cost within a year. I just throw this slide in here real quick. This is a fantastic resource, Pacific Northwest National Laboratory. Really one of the best resources out there on building tune-ups. And here's kind of I just wanted to go through the four most, really the biggest bang for your buck, the easiest things to implement across the building tune-up. I think that all apply to any of the commercial buildings in the city and the community. Sorry, Rhode County. So scheduling, right? So you're looking at, here's the same building here. And so about year one or two in, talking to the folks over there, I realized that there was a clinic on the first floor. And this is a clinic, it's part of the regional hospital. So they actually treat local people there. Students get involved, they get a lot of hands-on experience. But the clinic closes at 5 o'clock and it's closed on the weekends. So why continue to run it with the rest of the building that's running from 7 a.m. till 11 o'clock at night? So that was a few emails, and just in the software, we have the ability just to kind of clump those 20 or 30 rooms together and run it on its own separate schedule. And so that's what we did. So just that simple scheduling that saved about $12,000 a year and another 165,000 kilowatt hours, same as 165,000 pounds of coal. So what I like to kind of point out here is scheduling. That's just turning the equipment off. That reduces usage by 100%. I think sometimes this gets clumped in with efficiency, but just this, I almost feel like this is a part of a conservation. It's not any kind of austere measure. It's just turning off equipment when it's not needed. When you do need the equipment, that's the efficiency piece. We need to run it. Okay, how can we optimize it?
And hey, David, can we do a pause here for public comment? And then after the public comment period, we'll resume the presentation. Perfect. I understand that we're over time, and I apologize to everyone for that. But yes, let's take public comment here and take a break from the presentation. And if there is none, I guess we can just continue. Going once? Oh, okay. Hi, Rick.
I just want to point out this whole thing about Pratt and Whitney, and I'm sorry if somebody might have mentioned this before, but I didn't hear it. We're really just going to have to jump in the loop and get the county and the county approval process and whatnot, and the city approval process for new developments somehow integrated with the energy plan. It's got to be on the table up front. And it's not like a punitive thing, because maybe these guys are going to try to build the next generation advanced building and all that. But to me, it's more about just making sure, as I've said so many times before, that we assure that the people coming along are learning the knowledge that's available on the table. It's my strong contention, absolute observation. As is the example right here at Western, a STEAM campus, these are engineers who were in an old world. And David's got a good battle here to fight and try to make a STEAM campus efficient and more efficient. And there's certainly a lot of capital that could go there and really help. But there are engineers out there that would add steam today in new developments and other things like that. And we just need to make sure that we are trusting them, that we as a community understand that it's our role and responsibility to take leadership reins and make sure people are learning the new ways before they go build new factories here that breach all of our intentions and hopes.
Hi, my name is Michelle Myers. I'm a volunteer with the WNC Renewables Coalition. I work for the Center for Biological Diversity, and I've served as an energy commissioner in a different community. But that's all just a little bit of background to say that I really have high hopes for the Blue Horizons Community Council. You guys have such an important mandate in front of you. And really your goal is to implement the 100% renewable energy standard across the entire community. I want to speak specifically to the conversation about bringing Dominion Energy into the body. I think that there's a really necessary step before you expand to inviting an industry whose whole business is built on selling more natural gas. And that is to really figure out how you're going to encourage the community to participate in this body. When I look at the representation of this committee, I don't feel like it represents me, and I don't feel like it represents the broader community of Asheville. So I just really think you would need to do some goal setting and some planning before, and if Dominion wants to be a partner in that and has valuable data that might be helpful in figuring out where natural gas leaks are, or ways that they can be more efficient in their gas use, which I'm sure is a necessity. That would be great, but I think it really should start with some benchmarks and some milestones that you guys set as a committee with the community's mandate of transferring away from natural gas, which is not going to be the same goal that Dominion Energy has. I also just wanted to mention a bit about Pratt and Whitney. I think it's great that you guys are going to ask some questions and really continue to have a dialogue with them. But there's a lot of other businesses that are well established in Western North Carolina and in Buncombe County that also have a lot of roof space. And I guess I really commend Ned for everything you're taking on there. But also, like, are we looking to Ingalls, which has a lot of roof space and a lot of parking lots? Are we looking to distribution centers, which we have a huge one in Buncombe County, at least one, maybe two. I think there's an Amazon one now too. But, you know, there's other places that we should really be looking at. And I guess I also want to see the council establish some goals from some existing businesses here as well. Thanks. And keep up the good work.
All right, if anyone has any other public comments, please speak up. All right, David, you want to continue? Thanks so much for the pause. And thanks for the public.
No problem. So jumping back into it. So, you know, part of the software, one of the most impressive pieces of software I think we've come across is this events to HVAC. And, you know, so we did this building tune-up. We knew we had some comfort issues, things weren't working right. So we wanted to finish that and then add this piece to the puzzle afterwards. But again, kind of going through the order of what's been the most, has had the biggest impact and been the easiest to implement that Blue Horizons can also take advantage of. I would say the most powerful software is this events to HVAC. So down at the bottom right here, here's our campus schedule. So if you are a college professor and you want to reserve a classroom, right? So here you have room 313 and you're teaching recreational therapy to older adults. The class starts at 8:30 or so. You know, this software, it will actually pull that schedule out and you can see it resides here, room 313, right? There's 3 classes that day. And it will actually push it down to that building controller, right? That's back in that control software we talked about. And here's that room 313 and it's gray. So gray means it's unoccupied. It doesn't mean it's not heating or cooling, but instead of heating to 70 and cooling to 74, it's going to relax that. It's only going to heat to 55 and only bring on the cooling that gets above 78. So what that means is that room that was running from 7 a.m. and going till 11 o'clock or 10:30 is now running just a few hours. So you're taking a room running from 108 hours a week and you're dropping it down to 8 hours a week. That's a 92% reduction in runtime. And you know, what's incredible about this software, you don't have to have these elaborate campus level scheduling softwares. This works with Outlook and Google Calendar. And it's a pretty small company. That the gentleman there, he's out of Colorado, and some of his other clients are large churches. And so, and they are able to talk with Google Calendar and Outlook. So to me, I'm thinking of like small customers in Buncombe County and the city that are, you know, under 10,000 square feet, and obviously have Google and Outlook and just have some rooftop units and whatnot. So that's certainly worth exploring. We did this on that building across 30 spaces, and I'll show you the results at the end. So again, kind of going down the order of what's been the most, has saved the most energy for the least effort. The next thing here, and this is definitely an engineering term, it's a bit of a mouthful, so static pressure reset. So really, what is that? So all I'm saying here, this is what's driving our fan speed. And so this is an example of an air handler on campus. We have hundreds of these across campus. And you know, if you look at the air handler, it goes out and it's pulling outside air in, and it serves all, you know, typically maybe let's say 20 different rooms and offices underneath. And here's an example of what one of those offices might look like. It's actually like a little box that sits above a ceiling, and it's, you know, the air here you can see coming in. And what the software will do, it'll go out every 5 minutes or so, and it'll actually communicate with all 20 different rooms, and it'll say, hey, do you need more cooling? So for example, room gets hot, it opens up, and you need more air, right? So you can run down the list here, and you can see there is one at 100%. This room right here, it's moving, 395 CFM, and the airflow it needs is really 725, right? So what it'll do, it'll actually start to increase the pressure, which means it'll ramp up the speed of the fan. And what it'll do, if everything's satisfied, when rooms don't need any more air, you can actually not just back down the set point, you can back down the fan. So I'm sure some of you heard like VFDs and whatnot. So the problem we'd run into, I showed you the set point. So when this building was set up, when the air handler came on, it would start out at 1 inch of pressure, and the minimum was 1 inch and the maximum was 1 inch. So even when everything was satisfied, it was still running at that 1 inch. There's no opportunity for it to back down. And what you're looking at here is just some of the programming within that software. So just having the ability to do that, access that is huge. This is just simply a set point, right? Doesn't require any programming or an engineer to execute this, but just requires some basic understandings and access. So what that looks like when that fan is going up and down, here's the set points, and here's how it's tracking it. 6 a.m., building's coming on, you need some extra air to kind of push that heat down in the space, kind of levels off, and then by after noontime or so, maybe it heats up, the sun hits some rooms, and you need to ramp back up. You can see its set point and how it's tracking. Looks fantastic. For the engineers in the audience, you guys know the fan laws. So the concept here, if you can slow that fan down, let's say you just reduce that fan speed by 30%, you end up with a 70% savings in energy, right? That's going, and this is actually what I've read off. I've done the math and read this off of these drives. You're going from 16 kW to 5. That's 10 kW. We have a 10 kW system on our campus, and that's 40 solar panels. So just changing some set points, it's like adding 40 solar panels to campus. So second to last item here, same idea, looking at our discharge temperature, right? So again, an engineering term, but just basically what's driving our cooling, right? So if you can see the set point right here, we're at 62.5 is our cooling set point. And, and the actual temperature is 63. So we're actually, here's our chilled water coil. We're pulling air across and we're cooling it. It was 73 degrees. And you can see there was 5 cooling requests here. So what we found in the program, let's say if you have 5 requests, when you have 0 requests, you don't need to provide any cooling, right? And if you have 10 requests, you need 55-degree air. Let's say if you do have 5, so you kind of split the difference, you need 60-degree air. So that's how that works. But what we're finding with kind of the default settings in all the software, if you have 0 requests, it was saying, hey, you need 65-degree air. So what this does in the spring and fall, there's no calls for cooling, but it still was bringing on mechanical equipment because of a default set point. And not to harp on the controls vendor, this is something they cut and paste. They put it across all their projects, and no one complains because their spaces remain cool. So this was a simple fix. Again, this is just a little piece of the programming software, just changing some set points and being, having the ability to get under the hood to do that. And then, the final item here, why use this mechanical cooling? Why bring on these massive chillers? These are, up to 200 kW when they start to load up. Why not just use, we have, the example here, we've got 46-degree air. Why not use that cool, dry air for cooling, instead of bringing on this massive mechanical system? So you can see in this example here, there's no cooling requests. If there were, let's use that outside air instead of just this system here. And again, digging into the program, what we found was if there was any heating requests, even just one, it would lock out the software from opening up this damper and providing cool air for cooling. But it wasn't locking out the chilled system. So, it was still bringing on this huge mechanical system to provide cooling. So we weren't taking advantage of that outside air. So the results of that, prior to doing this building tune-up, our chiller started 810 times, and this is winter time. This is from November 2016 to March, right? So after we optimized the building, got the economizer working right, we reduced that to 273 starts. And this is the same period. So this is December. You can see for almost 2 months, it starts once, compared to the same period right here. So now you're looking at this resulted in a drop of 73% starts, or 77 starts, 77% in starts. And so now you're not just talking about energy, you're talking about reduced wear and tear on equipment. And one of the problems, not a problem, just the way it is in facilities, and the group that we have assembled here, we're all very passionate and concerned about climate and CO2 emissions. If you walk into a facilities group, or as you get out into the county and deal with any commercial groups, those words, unfortunately become politicized. But if you can talk about, hey, we're going to save money and we're going to reduce wear and tear on our equipment, now you're keeping everybody at the table. So over the long term, this is the result of the projects here. So you can see, this is kind of just looking at cumulative usage. So here's our fiscal year runs from July to June. So the very first year, what I'm doing is I'm taking the first year in July, or month in July, 235,000 kilowatt hours. You add that to August to get 492,000. And do that across 12 months, you can see how that looks over the course of 12 months. And so you can kind of really see the impact of your projects. That first drop here, was about a 6% drop, just doing that scheduling I showed. Next big drop was that building tune-up. So it's 15%, so 6%, 15%. And then we finally got that advanced HVAC working. That was another 10 or 12%. So, when that building first came online, we were using over 3 million kilowatt hours. And I don't have the first year or two here. And now, even with COVID, which certainly dropped usage, but we were still on track to run under 2 million. So that's the 30%, kind of what was advertising. Buildings waste 30% and we've taken 30% off. So that's, I think, a pretty safe number to advertise. And right now this building still runs on the weekends. So there's still another opportunity, and it's nothing, technically we can shut it off on the weekends, but it's more about coordinating, making sure people are not in there. And right now with COVID, that's, we're keeping ventilation running. We're going to err on the side of public safety. So that building now is at Energy Star level for an office building, right? And this is noteworthy because this is not an office building. This building houses a PT clinic with a hydrotherapy pool. It's got an anatomy lab that requires 24/7 conditioning. And it also houses some of our campus servers. So in addition to some fume hoods. So by no means is an office building, but it's at Energy Star level. The result of all these projects, we've saved $250,000 and $50,000 for the last 2 years. So when I look at all of the projects, the ones that we discussed here, and this kind of bears going back, taking the time later, I encourage you to go back and look at this later. This is really I want to try to get across, here's what we've executed and here's the numbers. So that clinic, just reducing that schedule, that was, let's say we had that ability in-house, but let's say that you had to hire somebody. Let's say that person was $100 an hour. So, 0.01, here's our payback. 0.01 is 365 hours or 365 days. That's 3.65 hours. That's a 4-hour payback. We ended up saving $12,000, 258,000 pounds of CO2. Here's another scheduling project I didn't mention. We did have to replace a sensor, bring in somebody because it was 1990 software. But even still, let's say that cost us $500. That's immediate payback, 300,000 pounds of CO2. Advanced HVAC, our investment in that. So you pay a one-time fee of $4,000. You pay an annual subscription of $1,000. That system paid back in less than 2 to 3 months. And again, 400% return on investment, and 400,000 pounds of CO2. The building tune-up, cost us $30,000, paid back in a year. And this is the biggest so far, 600,000 pounds of CO2. And again, these are all, and granted, this is newer software, but all these tenets can be applied to buildings across the city and the county. Below that, these are more hardware. We've installed some of these drives at our arena. It's more capital intensive project. You can see our biggest CO2 project, which we saved almost 5 million pounds of CO2 was a campus-wide LED project, but that was $3.3 million project. That was underway when I first started. And certainly, by no means, this is not trying to step on any toes with our solar friends at the table. We certainly, if you only do efficiency, conservation efficiency, we will never achieve these CO2 goals. But I just want to, in my opinion, is to keep all the programs in solar, keep ramp them up, but also kind of shine light on some just existing opportunities. So that's what I'm trying to shine light on here, and certainly not trying to step on any toes with our friends at the table. So just another way of kind of visualizing this. I encourage you guys to go back and take a look at some of these numbers. So, final, these are my, here, this has all been representative of what we've done at Western, and these are my own personal recommendations, and do not represent those at Western. Just trying to clarify that. So, I would say, next steps with the council, it's an easy step to contact the city of Seattle. Obviously they're a much bigger city, but I think a lot of what they're doing can apply to the city and county buildings. And I'm sure I'm not in contact with the city folks, but I'm sure a lot of those steps are already in place. A lot of that data is probably already there. But it would be good to have contact the city of Seattle and have a webinar on what their lessons learned are. I mean, these are mandates, but can we also use the carrot to kind of get these bigger buildings online? And again, if you're talking about the Rayathon, that certainly could be one of these ways to kind of get them in line and kind of see where they're at. Identify the most expensive city and county buildings with new HVAC and controls, right? So are we too focused on that EUI number? Do we need to just, are we missing some opportunities, right? Bigger targets are bigger opportunities. And keeping in mind, there's no perfect building. And one thing, I showed one or two trends. Why not create a building tune-up report template, right? So let's say that you don't have that expertise in-house, but why not, and maybe you don't have access to that software, but you will have a contractor that does. So why not, something we can do, I think at Horizons is to create a template, provide that tool, and have owners present that to their vendor. Like, show me that the static pressure is resetting. Show me that the building's air handlers are going off according to schedule. I think they'd be surprised at what you find. And finally, another area I see a huge opportunity is just creating a focus group for small buildings, right? I mean, I think some of the reports that you guys have collected are fantastic. And there's a huge opportunity for buildings that are smaller, under 10,000 square feet. Technology continues to get cheaper and cheaper. So let's look at that low cost controls, or BAS, for those small buildings that may just have some rooftop units, some thermostats, and give people remote access to make sure the equipment is operating as expected. I mean, I think that could be a good focus group just to and I'd be glad to take the lead on that, just to kind of see what options are out there that are affordable for businesses and small owners. And the one thing that I've left up there the whole time that's rarely in conversation is the need for metering and benchmarking. It's the old business adage: you can't manage what you don't measure. It's not glamorous, it's not exciting, but it's a necessary part of it. And I'll leave it at that. That's 8 minutes more than we expected, but sorry if I rushed through that and left out a good bit, but I'm glad to share that or respond to any questions.
Thank you, David. That was
Well, thank you very much for the presentation. I think the tech committee will sleep well tonight, digesting all the graphs. That was great.
Yeah, you figure if you throw enough graphs and spreadsheets into it, at least the engineers will be happy.
Just a quick question on the amount of emissions from fuel oil that seemed to spike the last year or two. What was up with that? When I saw the 4 million, there was a substantial increase, it appeared, and maybe I'm just looking at it wrong, or?
No, yeah, Ken, you have a good eye. So I think you're talking about this chart here.
Yes.
I can't actually see. It's funny doing that. I couldn't see it because of the screen, like I'm seeing all you guys. So we were swapping from, our steam plant we had was one of the oldest in the whole UNC system. And we still had number 6 fuel oil. So this is bunker oil. It has to be heated just to even work. And that we're going to, we're getting rid of that steam plant. And part of that was to burn off the old fuel oil, burn up that old number 6. So it was, not a, decision over my head, but instead of paying to remove it, it was already purchased. It was our backup fuel. And so that was burned to basically, so it wasn't have to be moved off site.
Okay, that just kind of threw me there when I was looking at those numbers. I was like, whoa, what happened? But that totally makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah, good catch there.
This is Rick. I just want to say bravo. Boys, this is a real statement for why you need a building energy manager. on a campus, because what you're describing is just so far beyond any sequence of operations that any engineer is ever going to put in anything. This level of control and analysis. The only thing I noticed in your numbers is your payback time on LEDs just seems like there's just got to be a data error there of some kind. I mean, you know, the payback on LEDs is like 2 years or less in general. So,
well, these were, I mean, you know, these were, I mean, it was a huge amount of different fixtures. So I'm thinking about like $120 fixture, and our rate is, it's unbelievable. Our rate is, you know, 6.3 cents. It's is our blended rate per kilowatt hour. So it's next to nothing. And the hours that they're working, you know, you're looking at, you know, off peak hours are 3 cents. So when those lights are on, we're only paying 3 cents. So how many hours do you have to run to pay off $120 extra at 3 cents? So that's meter. So we metered our campus, and then I took immediately before that project started, and immediately after, the 12 months after, and it was a difference of $200,000.
Dave, I love your presentation.
Thanks.
I think the solar pounds per kilowatt hour seems off, so I'd love to go through that.
Yeah, absolutely.
With you offline. I
Sure.
think you're off by a magnitude of 10 in terms of the solar reductions, but it depends on your assumptions, and I don't know what they are. The LED number, on the other hand, it depends on when the LEDs have come down in price so much that if this was going on when you started, the cost of those LEDs could have been a lot higher, plus all the installation costs and, you know, commercial situation and all that kind of stuff. And it doesn't count the other savings from LEDs in terms of replacements.
Yeah, maintenance, absolutely. Yeah, there was, I think in that contract, there was an additional $100,000 in maintenance savings, just not having to put guys on cherry pickers and lifts to get them out to change lights.
Per year.
Yeah.
Right? Per year. So over the life of the LEDs, what's that?
Yeah.
$1 million? I mean, you know, it's huge. But thanks, good presentation. Like that.
Yeah, thank you. And I would just say, like, again, kind of the next steps moving forward. I mean, you know, we're out of time today, but certainly would like to discuss those next steps. I think, you know, it's a lot of stuff that already overlaps with what I'm doing. So I'm glad to kind of take the lead or on that, or be part of the tech committee, whatever works. Yeah, any last questions, and I'll turn it back over to Sophie to kind of wrap it up for us. And Sophie, is this file, is it small enough to send, or?
Yeah, I've included it in the meeting documents for this meeting, so it's accessible on our website. And tomorrow when I upload the video of this call, I'll send that around.
Yeah, and I'll send you this. I've added a few more comments, I think, since the one I sent you before lunch. So.
Great. Gosh, there's just so much potential here.
There really is, yeah.
And this is eye-opening.
Hey, everybody.
All right, bye, Brad. I'm gonna call the meeting here unless there's any other questions, or 15 minutes over.
Thanks, everyone. Appreciate you.
Next meeting will be on February 18th, 3 p.m.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye. Thank you.